Hello, this is David J. Howe, Doctor Who collector and author. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, Fraser Hines here.
They all say, who is Doctor Who? Where is he from? What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
Welcome back to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the podcast that explores the all-inclusive world of Doctor Who collecting and merchandise. Welcome back to the show. I am Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been a Doctor Who collector now for 41 years. And I had the luck of opening up one of the first Doctor Who stores in Chicago that exclusively served Doctor Who fans. I called it Bundles from Britain, with special thanks to John Peel, who actually edited the Fantasy Empire magazine, where I took the title from. It was their mail page. Bundles from Britain was the news from England and mail in letters from fans. It was really quite a catchy title, and we took it and used it. It lasted for quite some time and evolved into many other things. And of course, I'm very proud that it's in a great book. I didn't know that the book was being written. I didn't include this information. I found it after I had purchased a copy of the book. And the book is called Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America. It's written by wonderful friends of mine who did a lot of research. And of course, you know, it's not complete. I kind of like to call the book my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it gives it the mostly harmless treatment because there's limited space in the book. So that's why we have podcasts to tell the rest of the story, and hopefully presentations and things like that at conventions to help get the story out there. Anyway, Bundles from Britain lives on page 384, and you should have a copy of this book, and you could find a convenient link on the front page of our website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com to buy this book directly from Amazon. We are part of the Direction Point Doctor Who Podcast Network. You can find wonderful Doctor Who podcasts at directionpoint.org. And if you happen to be a Doctor Who podcaster listening to this podcast, what are you waiting for? Join today and get the benefits of having your trailer appear on this podcast and other great podcasts such as Time Streams, Police Box in a Junkyard, the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, and Traveling the Vortex. For more information, go to directionpoint.org. Speaking of links, of course, two great resources that I include in every episode of the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. You should have timelash.com. And under that banner, you should click on the TARDIS Library to keep track of all of your media. That means books, vinyl, CD, books on tape, hardcover, paperback, all of those things that came out in print format or video format you can actually keep track for free. Register for a free account. You can create a wish list. You can share your wish list. You can create a want list. It's a wonderful place to keep track of all of those things. If you need to find something that's a little bit more unusual and not in that area, then you need, of course, the great David J. Howe Transcendental Toy Box at drwhotoybox.co.uk. David J. Howe, of course, is a good friend of mine. He's a professional collector. He doesn't like the word professional, but I believe he has a lot more at stake. When he collects, he collects. When he buys one of everything that comes out, that's a collector. And if you're looking for that, you can go to that website for that. Of course, if you're looking for great Doctor Who items at great prices, look no further than visiting DoctorWhoStore.com. Of course, that is the website of Alien Entertainment, which is located in wonderful downtown Lombard on Main Street. And you should visit the store if you're in the Chicago area. It's run by a very good friend of mine, Gene Smith. And you can also select free pickup from the store and save on the shipping costs, which are getting a little bit crazy. But of course, I know gas is high as well. So if you can't afford to drive there, then get the shipping option. They're open Wednesday through Saturday. You can get store hours up to date from alienentertainment.com and on their Facebook page. You can also find other Doctor Who items at Forbidden Planet, one of our sponsors. Just visit our website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com, and you can select the Doctor Who merchandise links. Don't forget our eBay store. We have a lot of great Target books that we are selling to help pay for proceeds to the podcast. In addition to our podcast, of course, on our website, we have, of course, the complete guide to Doctor Who classic hardcover books. I have seen page screenshots appear on Facebook feeds saying, hey, I agree with this. This is amazing. I didn't know there was a reprint of the Pyramids of Mars. Well, I have one. I didn't know the last reprint was the Space War. I have that one too. So there's a lot of great information there that we took from many, many sources to kind of create the best guide possible for collectors, keeping in mind that some of the books you may never see again. Now that Chicago TARDIS 2021 is well behind us now, we are now counting forward to Chicago TARDIS 2022. Of course, every Thanksgiving weekend at the Westin Hotel in beautiful Lombard. The nice thing about it being in Lombard is that you don't have to pay to park. And Harry Carey's restaurant is right in the lobby there. Beautiful, wonderful food. And it's kind of interesting. There's a Target across the street. I've gone over to the Target, and you run into all the celebrities who are shopping there for their for what they need to survive the week. So this year, our guests for Chicago TARDIS, no new guests to report, but here they are. We have Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor. I would say visit him while you can. I don't know when he's planning to retire. Fraser Hines, I think, comes with every convention and your ticket, and you can't miss him. He's a fun guy and a wonderful man. Jason Haig-Ellery, the CEO of Big Finish, and Sophie Aldred, who played Ace and will be, of course, playing Ace in the last Jodie Whittaker Doctor Who story. Keep that in your bookmarks, ChicagoTARDIS.com, and experience the best Doctor Who convention in the Midwest. I am honored by them to be the official Doctor Who collecting expert for Chicago TARDIS, and I often present my Doctor Who collecting panel and showcase at every Chicago TARDIS when possible. You can also get a view of the Who Room at the Doctor Who collecting panel from 2020, which was a virtual convention. And you can find that on the Chicago TARDIS YouTube and Facebook streams. I also have it under playlists at the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast YouTube channel. I will keep you up to date on Chicago TARDIS updates as they happen, but you'd probably get it faster by subscribing to their newsletter. And you can do that at ChicagoTARDIS.com. Special thanks to our sponsors, of course. We've mentioned Forbidden Planet, but let's also not forget Bags Unlimited Incorporated. For all your collection protection needs, bags, backing boards, VHS covers, DVD covers, poster backings, you got that right there, bagsunlimited.com. You can get Forbidden Planet items directly at our website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com. One more link to share, of course. Get the latest, of course, from Telos Publications. That's telos.co.uk. They do ship to the USA, and that is the company run by David J. Howe. What's going on? You can see me present Doctor Who Collecting if you happen to be at Doctoberfest in Indianapolis, Indiana, Saturday, October 22nd, at the Holiday Inn in Canby, Indiana, and also at the Who North America shop in Canby. With any luck, too, I'll also be presenting at Chicago TARDIS 2022, as I mentioned earlier. New to the collection. I thought I'd start adding, what's coming into the collection here. I'm an active collector. I still look around for things and try to fill gaps when I can. So here's what I picked up since the last podcast. I picked up some nice first edition Target books, including The Brain of Morbius and The Pyramids of Mars, with special thanks to my friend Dale Santos. Also picked up a mint copy of Nightshade by Mark Gatiss from the new Doctor Who Adventures. That was a really nice deal. And also, I had not seen one of these before, but I got a rare hardcover edition of the John Pertwee Book of Monsters. That came out some time ago. I had the paperback, and somebody had mentioned that there was also a hardcover. I'm like, okay. Not published by Target or W.H. Allen. It's another publisher, but very nice to have that in hardcover, and it's a nice mint copy. If you got something new you want to share, give us a shout out at Doctor Who Collectors Podcast at gmail.com. Happy to share that on the air. On today's show, we're going to be talking with Sylvia Elizabeth, who is a cosplayer. And she, of course, specializes in portraying Sarah Jane Smith and the 13th Doctor. She has a fan film where she plays Sarah Jane coming out on YouTube, and we will link this on our pages as soon as we get the word. I want to send a thank you to our patrons. If you'd like to see exclusive material that we cannot show through a podcast since this is audio, and a lot of times the collectibles are visual, you can visit our Patreon page and subscribe at the $15 level or above, or if you just want to pay $15 and cancel the next month and view everything, I don't care. Thank you for supporting us. I want to thank all of our folks who sponsor us there. And you can, of course, see today's interview with Sylvia, including her costume. She wears a wonderful Andy Pandy costume that Sarah Jane made famous, and it looks very good. So you'll have to check it out at patreon.com/Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. If you would like to support us, we are also at Podbean. You can go to drwhocollectors.podbean.com, click Become a Patron, and support us at any level. All proceeds benefit the podcast. And speaking of proceeds, attention, we are continuing to try to raise money to bring Doctor Who legend Peter Purves to our podcast. He played Stephen Taylor, actually played 2 roles in The Chase. You can find out more about that information. He talks about that story quite a bit. But he traveled with the first Doctor. And, as far as supporting our Doctor Who actors, we are asking for $271, which is exactly what he's asking through his agent. And they don't get a lot of money in their retirement years. We want to take care of these folks, make sure that they can live. So your sponsorship of this podcast will get a lot of reach, since this will, of course, be my highest-ranking Doctor Who guest. Just go to drwhocollectors.com, click Donate. Make sure you put Peter Purves in the message to PayPal, and we can add you to the sponsor list. If we got 100 sponsors doing $1, 271 sponsors doing $1, or one person who wants to pony up, that would be great. As we are a nonprofit podcast, we want to make sure that we, can help out our aging Doctor Who actors here. So let us know if you can help. Our theme song, of course, is Who's Doctor Who, composed by Barry Mason and Les Reed, performed by Fraser Hines, who sang lead. And, if you didn't catch it from previous podcasts, Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page plays the guitar on it. And when you listen to it, you can probably understand, oh yeah, that's pretty good. One of the best guitar players in the world. You can hear this podcast, of course, anywhere you get your podcasts, including Stitcher Radio, Pandora, Amazon Music, Podbean, and iHeartRadio, and usually wherever podcasts are found. You can also find us at directionpoint.org. We are part of the Direction Point Network. So after a quick break here, we'll, of course, have Collection Protection, our main story, our interview with Sylvia Elizabeth, then the most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Juliet.
And I'm Nathan.
Experience Doctor Who from the very beginning through a classic fan's eyes.
And through the eyes of a new Who fan.
Reminisce and relive those classic moments with Nathan as he offers fun insight.
Or experience them for the first time with Juliet as she dwells on social issues, history, fashion, and the size of a flashlight.
We're the Time Streams podcast.
Find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Are you ready to travel through time with us? Then check out Traveling the Vortex, a Doctor Who podcast. For nearly 7 years and more than 500 episodes, we've traveled from one end of the vortex to the other, making different stops with different doctors, reviewing everything from TV stories to audio plays, from books to comics, and more. Sean, Keith, and Glenn take you on a journey through 50-plus years of Doctor Who episodes and spin-off materials. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, so be sure to check us out. And now, we're a proud member of Direction Point, a Doctor Who podcast network. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Sad, really, isn't it? People spend all their time making nice things, and other people come along and break them.
And now it's time for Collection Protection on the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Bags Unlimited Incorporated. You can find a lot of products to protect your collectibles at bagsunlimited.com. So today I wanted to focus on your Big Finish and BBC Audio CDs. So once you take them out of the shrink wrap, you want to try to keep the jewel box as safe as possible. Of course, if things happen, sometimes they crack or they get damaged, you can replace the jewel case entirely, which is nice. And you can do that pretty much anywhere. Bags Unlimited has jewel cases you can buy. But there's also poly bags you can fit over the case sleeve. And some of them have resealable flaps, which is nice, so you can keep the dust and keep those nice. So let's talk about the CD jewel case sleeve. It fits over a single CD, which is 5 3/8 by 6 inches. It's a 1.5 mil polypropylene with a resealable flap, so it fits over that. You can get 100 of those for $13.39. Now, if you want to fit over a double CD. A double CD set. We've got this is actually 5 7/16 by 5 3/8 over 1.5 mil polypropylene with a resealable flap, and of course they're on sale right now for 100 for $9.28. So I would get those as quickly as you could. So there's a lot of different options if you go to Bags Unlimited. There's also CDC sleeves to fit your CD Digipack and CD gatefold jackets that are slightly larger, 6 by 5 1/4, 3 mil polypropylene with a resealable flap. That's pretty new. And also another one that's slightly larger here, that's 6 1/4 by 5 1/2, 3 mil polyethylene, and that's 100 of those for $26. So lots of options there for the poly bags. As far as jewel cases and single sleeves or things like that, or if you were interested in a CD binder and just taking them out of the cases and putting your CDs in the binder, if you're still doing CDs, a lot of my personal favorite is to pop the CD in my car. I still have a CD player and listen to the Big Finish thing. Or you can download the Big Finish app, and anytime you buy a product from Big Finish, they will update your online account and automatically include the download. So if you go to a convention, let's per se you go to Chicago TARDIS, Big Finish is always at Chicago TARDIS, and usually you can meet Jason Haig-Ellery. He'll be at Chicago TARDIS this year. He's been there the last couple of years. And they usually have somebody there with their laptop, and if you take your purchases over to that person, they will automatically update your account so that you can download the appropriate audios. So that's a really great deal. So again, if you go to bagsunlimited.com, just go to the categories tab and select media, and you can do all that, audio supplies, and not just CDs, but they've got supplies for 33 1/3 records, for 45 records, cassette tapes, and all that great stuff. So check them out. So they're the number one place for collection protection supplies. I've been using them since 1981, which is over 41 years, which means they have been around for a long time. So there you have it. If you have any questions or you have any specific things you'd like to help with protecting, shoot me an email at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com and put collection protection help in the subject area so I see it. And unfortunately, the email gets a lot of attention from the spammers of the world, so it's nice to poke out something that's actually relevant, and I'm happy to help you with that. We've had a lot of suggestions, and we plan to do some video tutorials on how to repair a dust jacket, how to put a book into a protective book cover. Those are really kind of neat because some of those ex-library classic hardcovers that we continue to talk about, some of the ones that I found, when I take off the library packaging, the dust jacket's in mint condition after all these years, because those things really do work. Anyway, that has been Collection Protection. We'll be back with the main story shortly.
Hello, I am Sadie Miller and I play Sarah Jane Smith for Big Finish. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Up there is the scanner, those are the doors, that is a chair with a panda on it. Sheer poetry, dear boy.
And now it's time for our main story. As we've talked about before, cosplaying and collecting go hand in hand, and it's very popular amongst Doctor Who conventions and other fan conventions across the United States. In fact, since 1985, when I first started attending conventions, cosplaying was a very big part of all of the convention scenes. So we've been talking to many different people who have engaged in this cosplaying and its very popularity and what happens with that. And it actually grows into its own culture and subculture. But it also involves sometimes using props or copies of props or copies of original designs, and that brings that into the collecting world. So today I'm talking to a cosplayer. Please help me welcome to the podcast, Sylvia Elizabeth. Welcome to the podcast, Sylvia.
Hello.
So tell me, how long have you been cosplaying?
I have been cosplaying since 2014.
And what are your favorite characters?
Well, my favorite character to do right now is Sarah Jane Smith. Obviously, I've come as dressed as her today.
Yes.
And this is my most popular cosplay, I believe. It's what I'm most known for in the cosplay community. I also enjoy cosplaying as 13. And I also do Sylvie from the show Loki.
Okay, very cool. Yes, and she's, for my listeners, she's wearing the Andy Pandy overalls that are extremely popular Sarah Jane costume. Actually, I've seen this costume in particular. That was the first Sarah Jane costume I saw in 1984 when I went to the Chicago convention in that late December time. And we had at least 4 people. And of course, Liz Sladen herself was there. And so she was seeing this and just didn't realize the reach she had in the United States. And it's still, to this day, in a few episodes back, I spoke with Sadie Miller, her daughter, and she's still amazed that her reach is still ongoing. She saw many cosplays at Chicago TARDIS this past November. And so it's really wonderful to see that. Sarah Jane is still, I think, the most popular character in Doctor Who history, and and continues to be. So so what got you into cosplaying?
I just remember going to a convention. I believe my first convention was Boston Comic-Con. And the first time that I went as Missy, the Master. And it was like my first exposure to this whole cosplay world. And it was just incredible. There were so many different fandoms and so many different outfits to choose from. I was just like, oh my God, this is just incredible that there's so many people who participate in this thing. And then I moved to California for college, and I started getting involved in different niche cosplay groups like the Order of Gallifrey and the Bad Wolf sector of the whole cosplay community. And then I started to get to know a lot of cosplayers. I started to get to know the people behind the cosplays, and I've formed some lifelong friendships from that, and it's been really nice.
That is one of the biggest things that I still see every year. I speak at Chicago TARDIS every year. I don't know if you've ever been to that one, but it's every Thanksgiving weekend in the suburb of Lombard, Illinois. Usually a big draw, but the number of costume players or cosplayers that I see, it just grows every single year, and from the very young to the very old. And it's just amazing to me how many years it's been going on. I'll share with you a quick story. At the 84 convention I went to, one of the gentlemen that was in a fan club with me, he was an older gentleman, and he decided to build his own Davros costume.
Oh, I love that.
So he was in the chair and had the rubber mask, and he designed everything himself because, this was the 80s. You couldn't buy things online yet or anything like that. Right. So he's going around the convention. He's got this powered wheelchair underneath his Dalek base, and he caught the attention of a photographer, and a photographer took his picture. We didn't hear anything about it. Then later that year, the 1984 summer Doctor Who magazine special came out with a spread of photos from the Chicago convention, and the first photo was Davros.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
And I thought, wow, I know that guy. That is so cool. And just from there, in that particular convention, that was the first convention, at least that I know of in the United States, that did a parade at the end of the convention of costumes, which is now kind of a standard thing now, done at almost every some have costume contests, but a lot of times there's what we call they call it the masquerade at Chicago TARDIS, and they do a big thing on stage, and it's really quite amazing. And the costume quality has just gotten better and better. I have to say that the Andy Pandy overalls you have look almost identical to the prop.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
And I even asked Sadie what happened to them, and they said they were BBC issue, and she gave them up when she left, and nobody knows what happened to them. But it's just such and that's probably the most iconic costume that she wore. So just the big questions that cosplayers usually get, and I know unfortunately in this online world of everybody has an opinion. What have you had anybody who's told you, I absolutely hate what you're doing?
I haven't had any of that, luckily. It's mostly been positive comments and positive feedback. I've had a couple of suggestions for improvement, which I've taken on board. But apart from that, it's basically just been really positive, really lovely feedback. And I got "you look like her" like a lot, like all the time, pretty much. And it's so lovely to be able to connect with people on Instagram. And Instagram, I think, is a big platform for cosplay. And it's just so easy to be able to tag people and just be like, oh, like that's how I met some of my closest friends, is that we'll take a group photo and then I'm like, oh, what's your Instagram handle, so I can tag you in this, and then I'll just go back and like all their photos. And it's just a really nice way to connect with people.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's been one of the greatest technological inventions of the modern age, especially for people who cosplay. And it's become, like I said, it's become a whole entire culture of not just the sci-fi world, but just a general media world of taking on costumes. Another story I heard from an actress who was on Babylon 5 and said that she was at a LA Comic-Con, and a woman came up to her in her complete costume with the sidearm, and she held the sidearm and said, "This was better than the prop they gave us to use on the show."
Oh, wow.
Of course, I said, well, today with 3D printing technology, you can get a picture of the original prop and turn it into a better prop than what they actually were able to make. And it's especially true in the Doctor Who world, because probably the costume you're wearing is 10 times better than what they threw together for Liz Sladen back in the day. And that's so let me ask, do you make your own costumes?
I do, yes. I make them with my aunt sometimes. There's this store in Boston. It's amazing. It's called Sophisticated, and they have a bunch of fabrics. They have a bunch of like sewing machines and different things that you can use there. And so this was actually a discarded Christmas fabric that we got there, and we were just like, what if we turned it inside out? And surprise, surprise, it was the exact same fabric that they used on the show. And we were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. We can use this. And we used it for the cosplay.
That's really incredible, because I know today, I even imagine today it's easier finding fabric than it was 20 years ago even. So of course, back then everybody had to get real creative and adding. And have you ever had anybody commission a cosplay from you?
I have not. I'm looking to try it in the future. I'd really like to commission the Mask of Mandragora cosplay. Oh, yeah, I have it currently. I made it myself. It was like one of the first cosplays I ever attempted to make entirely on my own. Okay. It turned out a bit of a crisis, because I kept calling my aunt, and I was just like, how do I do this? What's this button on the sewing machine? What does this do? And I called her like 20 times in a row, bless her.
Well, that's great. It sounds to me you're really enthusiastic about what you're doing and looking to be as accurate in your reproductions as possible, which is what I see when I'm out there in the Doctor Who world, especially. It's really quite amazing to me what is out there. I saw, of course, one of I had a Doctor Who store back in the 80s, and my former partner actually bought John Pertwee's green tuxedo from the Green Death.
Oh, that's amazing. So
he still has it in plastic hanging. And I thought, wow, I still wonder if, and those pieces are becoming fewer and fewer available out there, because a lot of them were props, and the actors didn't always keep the props. They always, turn them back into wardrobe. And occasionally a prop piece comes up, and of course, thousands of dollars for these prop pieces. So have you ever, what is exactly the most expensive cosplay project you've ever done?
The most expensive project, I think it's actually this watch, the Sarah Jane watch.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
This I
Okay.
found on eBay for like $70.
Okay.
And I mean, it was worth it because at the time I was just starting out cosplaying Sarah Jane. My first Sarah Jane cosplay was Prisoner of the Dragoon. And that was like the white jacket and the white leather jacket. I loved that. I thought that look was so cool. And I saved up all my money from high school and I bought it. And I mean, I guess it counts as a cosplay because it's like bought, but like,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
It was my first introduction to the Sarah Jane cosplay world. And so, yeah, this is definitely my most expensive cosplay item.
Okay. What would be the least expensive cosplay item?
That's a good question. They're all pretty expensive. Maybe my 13 braces. I think that was like the least expensive.
Okay. All right. It's just you know, a lot of times people ask me, and I'm not an expert in cosplaying by any stretch. I've just observed it for many years, and have really taken an interest. I've had a few cosplayers on the podcast already. One notably, I don't know if you know Katie Haynes.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, she's been on the program a few times, and of course she does a wonderful 13, and is super enthusiastic about it too. So, but all of her stuff is bought. Of course, it's all commercial, and so I know that can run into some money. Let me ask another question here: do you have a cosplay pet peeve?
Oh, I think my number one pet peeve would be if you're at a convention and you're eating or something like that, or like, you know, you're reapplying your makeup, or like or you're in the bathroom and people come up to ask you, oh, can I get a photo with you? And it's just like the most inconvenient time that you could have possibly planned it. Like you'll just be eating a slice of pizza and they'll just be like, can I get a photo? And I'm just like, can you read the room?
Yeah, I know that's actually been addressed at I know Gallifrey 1 and Chicago TARDIS actually put out a little statement, you know, saying, you know, be respectful. It's all about this anti-harassment policy that we're trying to promote, and it's so far been pretty successful. But you know, if you're obviously in a bathroom, that's not a good time to ask for a photo. If you're putting food in your mouth, it's not a good time, because a lot of times, you know, as for myself, you know, I've been in the Doctor Who world for 40 years, and I've actually been meeting with somebody and sitting at a table, and someone will come up like, hey, Larry, how you doing? I'm like, I can't talk to you right now. I'm really in the middle of something here that's really important, but hey, find me later and I'll give you all the time in the world. Yeah, exactly. And so that's got to be a thing. And also in the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic being part of it, is of course, you know, managing your personal space. You know, what kind of photographs are you comfortable with versus, you know, if somebody gets, you know, like you're a little close. It's I don't know you. Has that been a problem for you at all?
It's happened once or twice for sure. But I've only been to a couple of conventions since COVID, and very local conventions. So, and they've been small for the most part. Like I went to Anime Boston this past month, and it was huge. Like there were so many people, and it was just like I was kind of overwhelmed and a bit claustrophobic. I was just like, oh my god, like I haven't been in this like situation, this many people cosplaying since before COVID. Right. And me and this Doctor cosplayer, we were joking like, oh, we haven't seen you since before the plague.
Yeah, and then of course we did during the 2020 year, we did a virtual convention here in Chicago. So unfortunately we did have, I think, one panel on cosplaying that was done on Zoom, but there was no participation from outside. So but when we got back a year later, of course, we were all masked. And we all were told to keep at least a 3-foot distance, including from the actors themselves. Some of our actors are getting up there in years, and they didn't want to catch COVID, obviously, while they were over here. So that was a big thing to kind of keep some distance. And I remember, except there was a couple exceptions. When I went up for a photo with Sadie Miller, she was like, "No, get over here. You're my friend." And I said, okay, if you're good. I mean, I've had all my shots, so I should be okay. But yeah, it's but of course just the nature of conventions and people adoring your costumes, and they want to take advantage of that. So it makes you a public person.
Right.
and in that way. And sometimes, of course, you have to manage your personal space, and that can be tough. I know. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to experience some of the other conventions that are a little bit bigger. And 'cause I think your Sarah Jane would be very popular here in Chicago.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd very much like to come to Chicago. That'd be amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And let's see. Do you? Let's see. My other thing is, what is your favorite part of putting on the cosplay?
I think my favorite part is like when you're like just out of the shower, you're like you're putting on the overalls, you're putting on the shirt, and then there's like that split second when you're looking in the mirror and you're just like, oh my god, like I'm not Sylvia anymore, I'm Sarah Jane, and then you just walk out the door and it's amazing. Like that's definitely my favorite part of it.
What's your least favorite part?
The sweaty convention floors. I will just put that out there. It's so hot, and these overalls are not the best for like they're so incredibly hot. Like they're so sweaty and just gross. Yeah.
Like most BBC prop costumes, they're absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Another guy I know, John Davey. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he
I have. Yeah.
He plays Cybermen quite a bit, and he told me firsthand that you cannot get cool enough inside of a Cyberman costume, because once they put you in that thing, it is a sauna. And that's why he's thin as a rail, because he's always doing these monsters. And another guy I talked to, Richard Ashton, he played an ice warrior, and he said it's the same thing. It's a solid rubber costume. So you're basically like, you basically baby powder yourself up and slide into this thing so that hopefully it can get off of you later. But it's like 100 degrees inside the costumes. And of course, a lot of convention venues are not well ventilated and not air conditioned, and ours is in the winter, which is nice because you can actually cool off.
That's good.
But yeah, I can imagine that the costume material is not always breathable. It's not always conducive to good weather and all that. So I can certainly understand that. Now, as far as how you display, do you prefer still photography or doing videos?
I haven't been asked for too many video photography. I usually just do still, especially at Gallifrey 1. It's my favorite convention to go to. There's a lot of still photography outside, especially like they tend to do cosplay group photos, and they have different times on the schedule for like when the Sarah Jane cosplayers are going to meet up, or like when the 10th Doctor cosplayers are going to meet up. And there's so many still photos, and it's great. I have done some video photography. I did one for 13. I've done a couple for Sarah Jane, but I think I just prefer the still because there's just more time to figure out the poses and figure out what you want to look like.
Okay, that makes sense. And for costuming, of course, there's a debate about who and what can cosplay. So what do you think about have you seen costumes that you thought to yourself, this shouldn't be out there?
I don't think so. I think anybody can cosplay as anything, really. I think that cosplay is a really open and welcoming community to anybody who just wants to cosplay as anything they want. Like if you can, it doesn't have to be screen accurate is what I'm saying. Like you can just go as anything. And that's what's so brilliant about Comic-Con, is that you can be a 40-year-old, you can be an 8-year-old, and Black, LGBTQ, whatever. You can just go as anything, and it's brilliant. And it's just this welcoming community who will welcome you with open arms. And yeah, it's wonderful.
That's absolutely true. I know another story I heard was David Tennant actually went to a LA Comic-Con dressed as the Doctor and entered a 10th Doctor look-alike contest and came in second place.
That's brilliant.
And I know Ryan Reynolds typically will dress up as Deadpool and go as a participant, and no one bothers him. So it's a kind of also a place to, when people go in full costume, especially if there's a mask or some kind of a covering, or if they're inside a Dalek, you can completely lose yourself in the character and not be recognized. So I mean, when you're in costume and you're in a convention situation, do you go full character Sarah Jane, or do you stay Sylvia for part of it?
I tend to jump in and out of character. There have been a couple of great bits where one time there was, speaking of Davros, there was a Davros outside who came up to me and was just like, "Oh, Sarah Jane Smith," and it was brilliant. And my other favorite interaction at Gallifrey 1 was when I met Katie Manning, she just very gently like took the sides of my face like she did to Sarah Jane in Goodbye, Sarah Jane, and she said, "Hello again, Liz," and I just completely lost it. I was like in floods of tears when I exited out of the room. My friend was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No."
Katie is an amazing person. I've known her for 40 years, and when she comes to Chicago, we always have time that we can spend together because she's just such an amazing lady. But yeah, she embraces the costumes, even though I haven't seen too many people playing Joe Grant. But she loves the fourth Doctor costume. She loves the second Doctor costume. She's absolutely just super enthusiastic about anybody who's going into that world. And she's just such a kind of like also Fraser Hines too. If you've met him, he's also big on that as well. He doesn't see a lot of Jamies, but he sees a lot of other characters, and he goes, this is what it's all about. It's about having fun. It's about doing, enjoying what you do for the show. And of course, the show is going on 60 years. So we've got, a big celebration coming up. And so I think the next year's conventions are all going to be packed with people who are going to put out their favorite costumes. So I understand you have a fan film.
I do, yes. It's called Sarah Jane Smith Lost in Time. And it's sort of largely based on Dirk Gently, the TV show that came out in 2016. And it's Sarah Jane finds herself accused of a murder that she did not commit, and she has to prove herself not guilty, and she gets trapped in this time loop. And it's really it's fun, it's energetic, and we have a great 10th Doctor. His name is Anthony Perez. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He does a great 10th Doctor cosplay. He's incredible. And it's sort of like 10's final goodbye to Sarah Jane. So that's going to come out at the end of this month, at the end of June, and I'm very excited about it.
All right, my listeners, as soon as that link is available to where it's available, we will have that on our website under where this episode is, and we'll put it out there as much as possible. Where else can my listeners find you?
I'm also on YouTube at Sylvia Lupian, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Sylvia Elizabeth Cosplay.
My guest is Sylvia Elizabeth. I want to thank you for joining us today on the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I learned so much from you today, and I absolutely love your Sarah Jane.
Thank you so much.
It's been a wonderful talk. So, listeners, please stay tuned. Coming up next on the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast is the most outrageous offer. So, stay tuned.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson, Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast on the Direction Point Podcast Network. Keep collecting.
All my travellings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here. The oldest civilization. Decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt.
And now it's time, of course, for the most important part of the program, the most outrageous offer. This is an offer for a Doctor Who or Doctor Who related item that appears to be priced a little bit too high. We try to avoid possible conflicts, if anything that we are interested in that appears to be priced maybe just slightly above market value, then we don't really include that to be an outrageous outwear. This is something that's completely ridiculous and possibly, but not always, remedied by getting it somewhere else at a lower price. So this one arrived this morning. So I want to talk about this. This has to do with the Discontinuity Guide, the unofficial Doctor Who companion, and this is the second edition, which includes Paul Cornell, Martin Day, and Keith Topping, with a foreword by Terrence Dix and an introduction by Lou Anders. So this has the TARDIS cover of the Discontinuity Guide, the re-release of the second edition. The second edition, of course, the book covers basically all of the... it includes the original edition, Terrence Dix introduction, like I mentioned. The book has similar versions, has the Whoniverse, covers all Virgin New Adventures, Virgin Missing Adventures, BBC 8th Doctor Adventures, and BBC Past Doctor Adventures, as well as a variety of other prose stories, and a number of new series Doctor Who episodes and BBC New Series Adventures. This also basically it just covers a lot of that. It was a book that came out by Virgin Publishing, and I don't know how well it did. I don't have a copy of the Discontinuity Guide. I didn't feel a need to get one, but we found a copy here that's being put up for sale from Low Key Books out of Washington State. And this is on abebooks.com. This is the number one place for a lot of our outrageous offers. And we, of course, know that this is probably a robot store, that this book is not genuinely priced this way by a human being, or at least a human being that's thinking. So anyway, they've got of course, the shipping is free within the United States. But the price is $1,604.99. Again, the odd price leads me to believe that this is a robot store. And our efforts, we contacted the book through our Abe account and have received no response. And of course, usually by tomorrow, I'll check for the link again and it will be gone. Anyway, we found this book on eBay. Same exact edition, listed for $54. Still, I think it's still a bit high, but still that's a lot more reasonable than the $1,604. So again, just to help folks out. Now, you might be outraged at some of the prices of classic hardcovers. I usually am, but that's unfortunately nothing we can do about it unless people stop paying it. As long as people pay the prices will go up. Inflation shouldn't have anything to do with used items or collectibles, but sometimes that creeps into the formula. But anyway, there's no reason to pay that much for the Discontinuity Guide. I believe you can still get it on Amazon. We didn't see one there, but every once in a while those do come up, and it's really not an essential book. Let's see here. Yeah, Amazon does have a copy at $99. As high as $150. So it is out of print. So it is kind of, the prices are moving up. But I would say $54 is probably your best deal on eBay if it's still there. It is a buy it now price. The seller is Thomas K. Metz, altogether, THOMAS KMETZ, has a feedback score of 9, 100% positive. The auction, it may not be there as of this release. We make no guarantees on that. So anyway, that is the most outrageous offer. If you have a item or you find an item online that looks a little too ridiculous, send us the link or a screenshot and we'll do our research and we may air it here. And if you'd like to be mentioned, just let us know. This person did not want to be mentioned. Perfectly fine. We respect that. We do not publish that information. So anyway, that's our most outrageous offer. So keep your lookout out there for great collectibles. I appreciate the special thanks today to my guest, which is Sylvia Elizabeth, talking about cosplay. And you can catch the video interview of that, including her wonderful costume, at our Patreon page, Doctor Who Collectors Podcast at .patreon.com. I think it may be DoctorWhoCollectors.patreon.com, so you'll have to check that for me. Anyway, until next time, our next episode, of course, will be a continuation of our episode on classic hardcovers. We're going to go to the year 1978, and as always, my good friend and the host of the Doctor Who Target Book Club, Tony Witt, will be my guest. Until then, keep collecting.
Direction point!
A Doctor Who Podcast Network.